don't like words that hide the truth. I don't like words that conceal reality. I don't like euphemisms or euphemistic language. And American English is loaded with euphemisms because Americans have a lot of trouble dealing with reality. Americans have trouble facing the truth. So they invent a kind of a soft language to protect themselves from it. And it gets worse with every generation. For some reason, it just keeps getting worse. And it is a function of time. It does keep getting worse.
To some, the term government doesn't mean much beyond imagining the Capitol building, the current president, or even buzzwords such as power and politics. Government is something that is so ingrained within our culture and dictates so much of our daily lives, it can be hard to fully understand what it means. There's no one given definition for government. Dr. Harold Damerow, a professor of government and history, defines the role of government as primarily making public policy for an entire society. Merriam-Webster states that government is the group of people who control and make decisions for a country, state, etc. And Black's Law Dictionary mentions that institutions of the government regulate the relationship among members of a society and between the society and outsiders. Perhaps it is this lack of fully understanding the roles and functions of a government that has made it so easy for governments around the world to censor and spy on its citizens. George Orwell's 1984 describes a totalitarian society in which almost all aspects of daily life are censored and observed closely. In the United States, censorship by the government is considered unconstitutional. American society, however, has almost always been equivocal about the topic. For example, even as far back as in 1873, the government passed the Comstock Law. The passing of this law aimed for the suppression of trade in and circulation of obscene literature and articles of immoral use. This act made it illegal to send items such as erotica, contraceptives, abortifacients, sex toys, and things of this nature through the U.S. Postal Service. During the height of the law's enforcement, even certain anatomy textbooks were prohibited from being sent to medical students by the UPS. Similarly, in 1996, the Communications Decency Act became the first notable attempt by Congress to censor pornographic material on the Internet. Additionally, this act has been interpreted to say that operators of Internet services are not to be construed as publishers. This made them not legally liable for the words of third parties who use their services. Despite the passing of laws like these, America has remained firmly grounded in the beliefs of freedom of imagination and expression. This has become embedded within the national psyche and is supported and protected by the First Amendment. However, the First Amendment has been broadly interpreted by courts of law, and this is where censorship starts to become relevant again. The government undoubtedly controls many aspects of our lives. Some of the most commonly targeted subjects of censorship are sex in the media, sex in art, and violence as a whole. Much like in George Orwell's 1984, all of these forms of censorship aim to hide citizens from real life. In his dystopian novel, the reader begins to make connections and create parallels between life around the world today and life described within the book. Unfortunately, many people are denied rights and liberties we take as a given and are victims of government censorship. Free speech isn't so free when it costs you your liberty. In countries around the world, the right to express one's thoughts and beliefs is under assault. Circumstances like these are scarily similar to those in 1984. Newspeak is real today. It just resides under a different name. It doesn't stop there though. The iconic saying in 1984, "Big Brother is watching," is also becoming a reality. Since at least 2001, the US government has participated in massive surveillance of the domestic communications and communication record of millions of Americans. According to the Electric Frontier Foundation, secret government documents published by the media in 2013 confirmed the NSA obtains full copies of everything that is carried along major domestic fiber optic cable networks. One could argue that the similarities between the NSA and Big Brother. On that note, the individuals like Edward Snowden, who leaked crucial information about the NSA, are the Winstons of this world.
The idea of censorship has been around since man started having ideas. The dictionary definition of censorship is the practice of limiting access to information, idea, or books in order to prevent knowledge or freedom of thought. Censorship occurs in every society but is more prevalent in those with totalitarian governments. Until the 21st century, censorship was easier for governments because it would simply screen information before it was published in the media. for the public to read. The invention of the internet changed this because citizens now had the capability of expressing their views online without government intervention. Totalitarian governments, however, are finding ways to censor information before it reaches the internet. For instance, in Pakistan, the government suspended the most popular TV station for 15 days because it did not approve about what it was saying about the government. In Hungary, the government media authority has the power to collect the information about journalists as well as advertising and editorial information. In Russia, President Putin has ordered multiple media outlets to be blocked or to change their editorial line if they do not like what they are saying about the government. In totalitarian governments, censorship occurs so the general public is not given a negative outlook on their leaders. This is not to say, however, that censorship does not occur in democratic societies. The Edward Snowden leaks showed us that the internet can be used to peer into the lives and citizens of journalists in the U.S.
In the course of your lifetime, how much information have you consumed? From educational material to entertainment, music, art, news. What if all of that was just gone?
Censorship has worsened that it affects us. The government prohibits books being reached out and read about. Districts deny particular texts out of the whole school system so the students can't read about it. The government does not let the knowledge of every kind into school districts, and in schools, students' decisions are only valuable if it is approved and legal by the government. Censorship starts with the government or school districts removing materials that are inappropriate for the students. The government removes things that are criticism towards them, and parents don't want their kids exposed to worldview other than their own. Schools have censorship to keep the students on the right track and to have them reach their goals, while the teachers worry about what to teach and making sure that it is not something ideological or an unfavored idea. Censorship is impacting on students' free speech in their public education. Students must be provided with the core of American values and such, developing students and citizens into people who can adapt with deciding on the importance of issues and their judgment on public officials.
In 1984, every member of the outer party was either being watched or had the capability of being watched by the party at any given moment. It affected everything they did and was always in the back of their minds. The only things they thought they knew to be true were what the party had been telling them. Similarly, in the schools and in our communities today, students are constantly being monitored and censored of key information. The only real difference is that people are less aware of it today than they were in George Orwell's dystopia. St. Paul Public Schools received a grant for everyone enrolled to receive a free school-issued iPad for educational purposes. However, the learning experiences for these students are limited as their access to the internet and app store is heavily restricted. YouTube is also banned on school Wi-Fi, which simultaneously protects children from viewing graphic content and blocks them from educational videos and tutorials. Additionally, using computer filter programs, which the district has installed, to decide what websites to block can lead to the blocking of reliable and factual sources, such as the University of Kansas's medical library or a brochure about marijuana published by the National Institute on Drug Abuse for Teenagers. So that leaves us asking, are the freedom of speech protections put in place by the First Amendment being violated by the district's censorship of internet usage? In the Tinker v. Des Moines Independent Community School District Supreme Court case where students were sent home for wearing armbands in protest to the Vietnam War in 1965, it was decided that this violated their rights guaranteed by the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights. But still, almost 50 years after this was decided, the same basic U.S. amendment ensuring the freedom of speech and press is being overlooked in schools again.